Game reviews and self-defacing entertainment interlacing. Just sit back and start to space out over stimulation. Band reviews or playing skits where I'm a chick worth laying attention, grabbing product placement with the point I'm trying to make is overstimulation station, overstimulation station, overstimulation station, overstimulation station. Everybody knows who Garfield the cat is. I used to watch the show Garfield and Friends when I was a kid. Other people might know him from the comic strips back when newspapers were a thing. And younger people might remember Garfield from those god-awful Bill Murray movies in the 2000s. But I'm here to talk about one book that came out in 1984 called Garfield, His 9 Lives. I would have never known about this book had it not been for Family Guy. Yeah, that's right, the show with Peter Griffin and all the non-sequitur jokes that have nothing to do with the plot. He was going on in the story one day about this book and how it was scary and how it gave him nightmares as a kid, and how there was even a scene in it where Garfield attempts to kill his owner.
Speaking of which, you want to read something seriously messed up? Go out and pick up Garfield, His 9 Lives. An absolutely bizarre, fucked up piece of fiction. Half of them aren't funny. They're just artsy, scary, and disturbing. Why did you do Garfield, His 9 Lives, Jim Davis? Why did you do that dark, freaky one where Garfield kills that old woman? You want to see a picture? Look at this. This is an actual picture from the book. Hey, nice to see you, Garfield. What's the matter? You a little agitated? About to commit murder?
Wow, this is intriguing. So I went on eBay to see if it was a real book. Turns out it was, and it wasn't some expensive out-of-print collector's item. It was like $8, so I picked it up. And I'm by no means a comic book aficionado, but this was a really good read. It explores Garfield and his 8 previous lives and things that have happened to him to shape him into the cat he is today. So let's take a look inside and see what this book is all about. The first story in this book is called Cave Cat, and it shows Garfield's first life as a primitive cave dweller who eventually gets smushed out by a dinosaur-sized Odie. Garfield's second life was as a Viking. After being unfrozen from an iceberg, Garfield and his clan have to survive in modern society. They eventually abandon their primal ways for a more socially acceptable lifestyle, but the everyday grind wears on them and they all become depressed, before eventually going berserk and reverting back to their old selves. And then somehow they get frozen again for another 1,000 years and the whole thing repeats. Garfield's third story, which is my personal favorite, was as a private investigator. The story is your typical noir style whodunit, but with a twist. They're all cat people. I seriously, though, love the animations in this story, and it is easily the most comical out of all the stories in the book. It was a slow day. The hours seemed to drag by like a Cubs versus Braves doubleheader. I decided to get a phone. As I was leaving the office, I found myself face to face with one of the most beautiful creatures I'd ever seen. Her ears were like the pyramids of Egypt. Her eyes were limpid pools of gray with coal-black slits. Her whiskers swayed in the brisk city breeze like cattails on a frog pond in southern Louisiana in September, sometime toward the evening, before 10 and probably after 8:30. Where was I? Oh yeah, the broad. Yeah, she was cute. Garfield's fourth life was as an exterminator in the not-so-subtle play off the Three Stooges. The cats are called in to catch a mouse at an old lady's house. A variety of classic Three Stooges slapstick is depicted, and they eventually catch the mouse. They try to get each other to eat the mouse before finally throwing it in the old lady's mouth. Turns out, she really enjoys eating rats, so she joins the team. Nah, I could have taken or leaving this one. Taken or leaving, those are words. Garfield's fifth life was as a lab animal. The animation and tone of this story is where the book starts to allude to some of the darker elements of Garfield's persona. He's injected with some kind of serum and then escapes from the laboratory. As the search dogs are hot on his tracks, we find out exactly what he was injected with when Garfield looks at his reflection in a pond. He had mutated into a dog. I gotta say, the animation on this is just awesome. From what I could find, the animators Gary Barker and Larry Fence's only other credits were on the Garfield and Friends TV show in the late 80s and early 90s. It's a shame this couldn't have been adapted to a movie instead of the shit we got in its place. The sixth story in this book is called The Garden. Looks like an acid trip when it goes really well, actually. Garfield and his friend Chloe live in this paradise-like garden with happy feelings, singing and dancing. Yeah, drugs were not at all in the picture when this was written. Nope, not at all. Chloe's Uncle Todd built this garden and allowed them to stay there under one condition. They are never to open the crystal box, but they end up approaching the box and they don't open it and continue to live in bliss forever and ever and ever. Curveball! The 7th story in this book is probably the most controversial and was referenced in the Family Guy episode, titled Primal Self. This tale is mainly told through animation and not through words. What exactly happens in this story is up for grabs, I'm guessing. It follows Garfield, who goes by Tigger apparently, as he is sucked into some kind of third dimension in the wall. He is apparently tortured and or possessed, and the end alludes to Garfield killing his owner. Nice. Now this should have been a movie. Garfield's 8th and current life is set in the familiar Garfield world and reads just like the typical comic strip. The story isn't very gripping and it's just about how John adopts Odie, Odie saves Garfield from getting run over, Garfield doesn't remember it correctly way down the road, nyeh. The final story in this book is about what Garfield's future may hold, and of course, it's set in outer space because you can't talk about the future and not be in outer space. It's a rule. Garfield is captain of his own spaceship. Hijinks ensue and he is attacked by a galactic war fleet. He is almost defeated when we find out that it's all a big simulation in a local arcade. And then the book ends. Well, that's it for the book. If you liked what you saw, you can pick it up on eBay for fairly cheap. This book is like a field guide in the various types of animation. Every story is animated completely different. I always love it when people take something we all know and love and do something completely different with it. That's always appealed to me. Well, my name's Josh Cannon. This is the Overstimulation Station. Hope you enjoyed watching. Enjoy the rest of your night. Funding for the Overstimulation Station is brought to you by the Carlisle Group, with additional support by... Nah, I'm just fucking with you guys. Ain't nobody supporting my broke ass.